So what we have here now, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to make a collar for around the bow. So what we're going to do, we don't need this much material by any means, but this gives me a handle. I'm going to put a hook on here that'll hook around that, and it'll hook around here and come to about halfway here, because we want the seam of the collar in back. Now that piece, when we make that hook, you have to remember that piece is 1 inch wide. Now we have 3 pieces, 3/8 or 1/8 of an inch, which is only 3/8. But there's a lot of gap between them. So we're not going to make that real tight. But basically we're going to come around with a 1/2 inch and then about a 1/2 inch hook somewhere in there. So there's our hook, start of our collar. So if you look, here's our bow. See if I can get this around to where you can see it. And that hooks right there where we want it to hook. Okay. Now when we hook that, we're going to put it in a vise and we're going to pull it around to the back side. That's what we're going to do. So we bring this around, we hook it right there, clamp it in our vise, and pull it around. After we get it pulled around, we bring it over to the horn of the anvil. We hammer it down. Now we're going to heat it up one more time. Now we're going to bring that on around. We're going to try to work it a little bit. Tighten it up around there. That's what we're going to do. So there's our collar. Right there. We're going to heat that back side up. Well, we've got it where it is now. We're going to bring those 2 ribbon ends down and around. What I want to do is I want to come up here. I want to clamp that in there just like that. Then I want to hit that down. Okay, we're going to heat it up again. We're going to do it one more time. And we're going to do the other side. Bring it down. Wrap it in there again. Bring it down one more time. So we come up here, this time we put it in from this direction, get it tightened, and then hit it down. think where we're at. That's what we've got so far. Okay, so there's the back side. So we want to take a look at her collar. We want to go about right here. We want to cut our collar off. So I'm going to stick it in the vise. And I'm going to cut it off. So we have it clamped securely in the vise. We're going to cut it with a cutoff wheel. Now if you notice, I'm making a second cut here where that overlaps. So there you can see where we made our cut. It's ugly. Now we're going to close that gap up. Heat it up and we're going to close that gap up. So here's our bow, right here. The front looks nice. The back is even on the sides. It's together here. The only thing we need to do is, if you'll get this bow, is these ends here. Right now they're just flat pieces of metal. We want to give them some life. So that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to need 2 pair of tongs to do this. First we're going to bring it out. We're just going to set it right here. We're going to hit it here. Then we're going to flip it over. We're going to hit it here. Then we're going to flip it over again. We're going to hit it right here. Giving it a little bit, you can see that we're just giving it a little bit of wave to it. Now we're going to stick the very end of it in the fire. We're going to heat it up. This is where we're going to need 2 pair. We're just going to bring this out. We're going to be mean to it and twist it. We're going to twist this one now kind of down that way. In the very end just a little bit. We're just giving it some life. So now we're going to do the exact same thing with the other one. We're going to heat the whole body up, the whole ribbon up. We're going to bring it over here like we did before. We're going to hit it here. We're going to flop it over. Any way we can get it there. We're going to hit it there. And we're going to bring it back down here. Going to hit it here, or maybe there. Just going to give it a little bit of life. A little bit of shape. Now we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to come over here, but we're going to twist it the other direction. And we're going to give it kind of a bend that way. Now we're going to take that and we're just going to wire brush that a little bit. Clean that up a little bit for now. And there's our ribbon right there. Now we're going to make the hook real quick for the ribbon so that you can hang it and you can hang a wreath or anything else you want from the ribbon. Start with about a 16, 18 inch piece stock. It really doesn't matter. We don't need that much, but that way we got a handle, we don't have to fight tongs. What we're going to do first, we're going to put a taper on one end, a good long taper. We're going to start our taper. We start at the end just like we did before. We don't want, like before, we don't want to hit it a whole lot on the edges. We want to hit it 2 or 3 times. And then we want to flatten it back out, otherwise it's going to buckle on us. Now I'm going to start working my taper back, making my long taper. I don't want a real sharp point on that end in either plane. Probably about an 1/8 to 3/16 point on the end is what I'm looking for. We're going to work our way back a little bit. Now if you're making more than one, you want to leave you some story marks on your anvil. Just like we did before on how far your taper is, so that when you scroll them, you'll know that every one of them is going to be the exact same or close to the same, and they'll look decent when they're set side by side. So we're just going to move back a little bit. Now we're going to center it up. So right now it's off center just a little bit. You got to bring it back to center. Okay, there's our taper. It's centered up. Now we're going to put a little rat tail scroll on it. And then we're going to turn the hook over the anvil. Okay, so we're going to bring this out just over the edge of the anvil. We're just going to bring it around, put a little pigtail. And there we have our little pigtail. Now we're going to heat it up, and we're going to scroll it around the horn of the anvil. So I want to cool out a little pigtail so we don't destroy it. I just want to bring it over here. I just want to work it around the horn of the anvil. Center it up, and there is our hook. Okay, so we have our hook forged. So what we want to do is we want to get an idea of how far down we want our hook to hang. If you get it up here too short, it gets in the way. The bow gets in the way. If you get it down here too long, it looks kind of silly. So I like to come down just a little bit lower than the ends of our ribbon. So I want to put a mark here and a mark here. And then, so once we have found out the length that we want, so we want to mark it here, we want to mark it here, and then we also want to come up here and look at where we want to put. So we want to put our mounting hole about right there. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put a couple of center punch marks here and here, because what we're going to do now is we're going to move this. We're going to come to the center of this, pretty much right here, more or less. We're going to put another hole, another witness mark. Okay, so we've got a witness mark here, one here, one here. We're not going to put a witness mark here yet. We're going to fuller in the sides of these a little bit just for decoration on the corner of the anvil, and then we're going to beat this whole thing up from here up with the ball peen hammer to give it a little bit of texture. First thing we want to do is forward those two sides in just a little bit. So we need to heat that up right there where those two witness marks are. We're going to come up here, we're going to make sure where our two marks. Turn it around. Notice I'm using the peen of the hammer to do this. There's the start, right there. So I heat it up one more time, and do that one more time, just to give it some life and some body. Down a 45-degree angle. Now turn it over. Now, that's all we wanted, was a little bit of life and a little bit of body. Now we're going to come down here about 1.5 inches, farther down toward the other end, not toward the hook end, but the other end. We're going to do the same thing again. We're isolating where the screw hole to mount it is going to be. We're going to come down here, like I said, about 1.5 inches. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. Gonna roll it over. Now we're going to straighten it out again. Straighten it back up again. Okay. Now, I'm going to heat that up. We're going to get us a hot cut chisel. It's a side butcher if you look at it. It's only beveled on one side. We're going to cut that off. Right there. Going to come at a little bit of an angle from this way. We got the bevel facing away from the piece that we're going to keep. There we go. Now we're going to put that back in the fire. We're going to heat that up. And I'm going to take the ball peen. I'm going to round that out a little bit. Put it back in the fire. Finish. Just give it a little more shape. You don't want to go too thin. Okay. So we just give it a little bit of shape. Now what we're going to do with it cold, we're just going to give it a little hammer texture with a ball peen. Give it a little texture. We've got that center mark where the middle of the bow's at. But other than that, we're just going to walk down through here. We're going to give it some texture with the ball peen. Now we're going to turn it around. We're going to go down to the start of our paper. As far as we're going to go. Now we're going to straighten it back out. So, there's our piece. And there's our bow, and that's where our bow is going to go. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to drill the center of our bow, and we're going to drill this hole here so that we can rivet them together. So I've got 1/4 inch rivets here. So I'm going to go with a 17/64 bit, so I just got a little bit of wiggle room to play with. This one we're going to grab with a pair of pliers, a pair of channel locks with the teeth ground off. reason we grab that with a pair of pliers, a pair of channel locks, is it grabs that while you're holding it and it comes around, those sharp edges will cut you. And I don't wear a glove when I'm using a drill press, because if a glove gets caught and it pulls around, it could take your fingers with it. So I'd rather grab them with a pair of pliers. Now, according to a measuring stick, we've got about 5/8 right there, thickness. And then we've got another 1/8 inch here. So that's 3/4. Then we need another 3/8, which will put us at 1 inch and 1/8. And we have about 1 inch and 1/16. So we'll put it in from the back side. Now once we get it to that point, I want to take a monkey tool. And I want to drive my monkey tool down on there. Make sure we're seated. Now that's a 1/4 inch rivet, so we're going to take it over the anvil and we're going to rivet it cold. Now I've got a good heavy ball peen right here, but for doing things like this I like to use a medium weight so the rivet doesn't just bend over. So we're going to start straight down. Once we get it to that point there, then we start we're just going to give it a hammered texture so it matches the rest of the rivet. So there we are. Now we've got to have a hole here where it mounts to the wall. So we're going to take and we're going to center punch that and we're going to drill a hole. We're not going to get real wild, we're just going to kind of guesstimate where we want it. Imagine that, right? Put it about right there. Put a center punch mark in it. Here's our bow now. We kind of just took a flap wheel and cleaned up around the edges here. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you learned something from it. I know I did. The main things that I learned from it is these have to be pulled down a little bit more to get the for the convenience bend to get this folded in, and then when you make those cuts that we made right here and right here, especially on the middle groove, middle channel, once you cut that, you want to kind of round those off. Otherwise you've got to round them off later and they're a little harder to do. So when you cut those, right after you cut those, round those off. But other than that, it went pretty good. I thought. I'm happy with it. I hope you like the finished product. I hope I gave you enough information to do it on your own. So you have a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, be safe, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.